Thank you. As I look over and see my friend Mayor Dodd, I just want to let you all know that I know with your recent disaster, all of us stand with you and hope that all that's gone as well as it can. And I'm glad there was no loss of life, but we're here with you and you can count on us for support if you need us.
And, Doug and my colleagues, on behalf of Virginia Beach, we do thank you for your prayers and support. It was indeed a miracle. There was not a loss of life or injury. And fortunately, with help of a lot of people, the response was beyond tremendous. But we keep in prayer the people that were adversely affected with this. But thank you all for your thanks and concern.
Certainly welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, takes us now to item 2 on the agenda, is approval of modification of the agenda. Did I miss something? Oh, I got okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've received no request to amend the agenda. I'd recommend that the commission approve the agenda as presented today.
Need a motion? So moved.
Second by Dr.
Was that Dr. Ward? Yep, thank you. Okay, motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposition? Motion passes. Takes us now to item 3 on the agenda, public comments. Don't believe we have any submitted.
No, sir.
Okay. Would anybody like to come forward and speak at the podium? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public comments and takes us to the executive director's report. Mr. Crum?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My monthly report is included for the commission's review. I would be happy to respond to any questions or comments. I would like to just make a few notes. First off, at everybody's place today, you'll find the Planning District Commission Challenge coins. Hope everybody takes that with them. Just a little something we're doing. Matt Klepeyes, great work designing it. Keep this in mind. You're going to hear a little more about this in just a few minutes, but we'll be back with you on that. Couple of really exciting staff announcements I'd like to mention. First off, I'd like to introduce Eric Wahlberg to everybody. Eric, if you wouldn't mind standing a moment. So Eric is our new principal planner for the Planning and Economics Department. He started with us here in early May. He's a certified professional planner. He has extensive experience as an urban and environmental planner, working for government, working for nonprofit. Some of you might recognize Eric. Earlier in his career, he was actually a Planning District Commission employee. So we're excited to welcome him back. He was previously the administrator of the Physical and Environmental Planning Department here at the PDC. So hope you all get a chance to welcome Eric back. We're really excited to have him join our team. So welcome, Eric.
Welcome back.
So secondly, a little introduction, but first some good news. Ben McFarland, if you wouldn't mind standing real quickly. So you all know Ben. He's provided multiple presentations to you about sea level rise, about flood mitigation, about climate change. Well, we thought that it was time that we really characterize Ben's position a little differently. He's been our senior regional planner. Ben has now been promoted to our chief resilience officer. I think everybody can agree to have a chief resilience officer for the Hampton Roads region makes a lot of sense. So first off, if you could please help me congratulate Ben for that. And then while we have Ben at the podium, what a great time to have him update you on a couple of efforts on a joint land use study and some work we're doing with the military. So Ben, why don't you take it away?
Well, thank you, Bob, Mr. Chairman, and members of the commission. Happy to be here today to give you an update on where we are with some of our military coordination efforts. As many of you probably recall, we were the sponsor for 2 joint land use studies that were done with several Navy installations on the south side, working with the cities of Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth, and Virginia Beach over the last several years. And we had a meeting at the end of April to recircle and to get back and talk about where things are, update each other on our progress that's been made, and identify some new opportunities that are on the horizon. Had representatives from all of our Navy installations there as well, and also participation from Harumpa. So really trying to get that whole group together to make sure that we are still making progress, that we're sharing the information that we need to, and that we can discuss some opportunities that are coming up with federal grant opportunities with the DoD and with others. So One of the things that we are working on right now, and you're going to hear some more about this later, is focusing on implementation grants. So we don't just want to have these joint land use studies that are going to sit on the shelf and look pretty. We want to have studies that are going to lead to further engineering and design work, which then tees our localities up to have construction funding from whatever source of federal or state funding might become available. One of the projects that Whitney's actually going to be talking about later today is a set of roadway flooding sensors. We received implementation funding for that from the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation a few years ago. There's other work that's going on right now. We have a military installation resilience review that is starting to update and fill in some of the gaps from the Norfolk Virginia Beach Joint Land Use Study. But really exciting news that's happening. Portsmouth just submitted an application for funding from OLDCC to study in detail some of the corridors that we identified as part of the joint land use study. I really identify some of the strategies that will be necessary to adapt those corridors to more frequent flooding. And we're working with Norfolk on a similar proposal that's going to be looking at Hampton Boulevard and Terminal Boulevard as well. So a lot of things going on right now. But the key message here is that we are continuing to have these conversations with our military partners and that we're identifying these opportunities and taking advantage of them to make sure that you all are ready to receive that construction funding when it becomes available. Thanks, Bob.
So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my director's report for today.
Good, thank you very much. Takes us to the consent agenda. Do you want to walk us through that?
Yes, in your consent agenda today, you have approval of our meeting minutes, our treasurer's report, and our community development block grant regional priorities for 2023. Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend action by the commission to approve today's consent agenda.
Move
Motion
approval.
to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposition? See none, that passes.
Mr. Chairman, I would also recommend that we circle back to our community advisory committee.
Sure did. That's 2 meetings in a row. Sorry about that. Mr. Beduldig, Trotsky, please.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm glad that you're not discriminating against me. You're giving me the same treatment as the predecessor organization. So we did not have a meeting this month. Our last meeting was in April, and we have one coming up in June. And I will say to you, for the benefit of those who were not in attendance at the other meeting, that we're always looking for local talent to serve on the community advisory committee. If you have people in your locality who are very tied into the communities, they are the kinds of folks that we would like to have as part of our talent pool for the future. Community advisory committee members, except for the founding generation, may serve 2 consecutive terms of 3 years apiece. So although we are close to filled up at this point, we always have people rotating off. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I apologize for looking over your spot on the agenda. That takes us now to the proposed 2024 budget.
Well, Mr. Chairman, actually, we'll do this in 2 parts. First, we'll be, if you could go to the video when I tell you, Dimitri. First, we will be presenting and asking for approval of our HRPDC 2024 work program. And then after that approval, we'll move on and request consideration of our budget. So our first item will be a discussion of the fiscal year 2024, which begins on July 1 of 2023 and runs to June 30 of 2024 in our work program for the HRPDC. This is a summation of the work that we do on your behalf. Now, most years, I stand before you and we go through a number of slides, sometimes 10 to 15 of those, and I talk with you as a planner in great excitement and detail about all the work we're going to do for you. But this year, Katie Collifer, Greg Grutendorf, and the PDC team came to me and said, Bob, why don't we try something different? So pleased to, we thought, and what a better way to explain to you what work we're going to do on your behalf this year than for you to hear from your staff at the PDC and what our work's going to look like. So Dimitri, if you can go ahead and hit play, we'll present to you our video for your consideration.
This challenge coin represents collaboration in Hampton Roads. At the HRPDC, we're in the business of bringing people together to tackle the challenges that face our region.
We're working to protect and develop affordable housing opportunities for all, and to expand home ownership for first-time homebuyers with down payment and closing cost assistance programs.
We're here for technical assistance and to produce a variety of regional data products, including lots of maps and apps.
We provide regional planning, modeling, forecasting, and benchmarking to help chart the future.
We're the hub for regional emergency management initiatives.
From mitigation to recovery, we're here to enhance regional preparedness.
When it comes to environmental education, we've got you covered. Just ask hrgreen.org. Resources for residents, businesses, and students alike to make Hampton Roads a little cleaner and greener.
We work with our localities and military partners to build more resilient communities.
We're developing planning and design standards that count for sea level rise and precipitation. And we serve as a forum for drinking water and wastewater utilities to come together and share best practices. We're always looking for opportunities to address affordability and water quality improvements. And we have a robust regional stormwater management program that is dedicated to protecting our local waterways and the Chesapeake Bay. We work with our state and federal partners to stay informed on decisions affecting our local water programs.
And we continue to work towards ensuring that all of our programs and initiatives are available for you.
We are so excited to continue our work to make this region the best it can be. We are the HRPDC.
So could I ask all the staff that was in that video to please stand for a moment, please? So I know you know these are talented people, but are they not amazing? And I want to give a special thank you. Katie Collifer and her husband, Bobby, who provided pro bono support for this to make this happen. And did that in about 18 hours, Katie. I don't know how you and Bobby did that, but thank you so much, Katie. We really appreciate that. Dimitri, if we could go on to the PowerPoint, the video allows me to do this, and I think 4 slides very, very quickly. So we do ask for your consideration of approval today. As you heard in the video, we have program areas ranging from emergency management to environmental education, housing and human services, planning and economics, water resources, communications, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we also are prideful that we are able to respond to some of your other requests, whether it's regional legislative affairs and advocacy, supporting the build out of the regional fiber network, supporting the violence and crime prevention work of your mayors, or even our new regional aviation strategy. Really excited about our work program for the coming year. Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the commission consider action to approve the FY 2024 HRPDC work program. This work program was provided to you as part of the agenda distribution in detail. It also was posted for public comment. No public comments were received, and we believe we're ready for approval today as we move into the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Crum, and thank you to all the staff members that participated in developing the work program. I think it's a lofty goal for the year, and I think we all look forward to seeing it be accomplished. And I do a real quick one. How many people dropped the coin when it came to it? Nobody? Okay.
Katie, are you telling?
No, but good. Any discussion on this? Would somebody like to make a motion for approval?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so now we'll talk about the budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Dimitri, we can go ahead and pull up the budget presentation. Now that we've discussed and approved the work program, we want to discuss approval of our budget to support that work. The budget that I'm about to present to you today comes to you with the recommendation of your joint Planning District Commission, Transportation Planning Organization, Personnel and Budget Committee. This budget that I'm about to present to you was approved by the HRTPO board a little earlier today. They are recommending a couple of conditions to the approval, which I will outline for you when we get to the point of requesting action from you this afternoon. So the FY 2024 budget covers the time frame from July 1, 2023 to June 30 of 2024. Our Personnel and Budget Committee had a very detailed conversation on April 20th about the budget and developed the recommended budget and recommendation that you'll be receiving today. We also reviewed the budget with your city managers and county administrators at their CAO committee meeting on May the 3rd and present it to you for your consideration today. Again, TPO board granted approval. With the approval by the PDC board, we will be set for our operations to begin on July the 1st. This is your Personnel and Budget Committee. Of course, Mayor Pons as your HRPDC chair. Mr. McCarty from Isle of Wight County as your HRTPO board chair. Mayor Shannon Glover from Portsmouth. Mayor Gordon Helsel from Poquoson. They are the vice chairs of the PDC and the TPO respectively. Mr. Keaton, Randy Keaton, the CAO from Isle of Wight County, serves as the HRPDC treasurer. And we have Chris Price from Chesapeake, who represents the Southside CAOs, and Mr. Randy Wheeler from Poquoson, who represents the Peninsula CAOs on the Personnel and Budget Committee. So in your agenda distribution, we provided a wealth of data and information. I won't go through this today, but a number of handouts that detailed all the specifics about our proposed budget. When you look at our budget, you can think of our budget in two big buckets of monies that come through our organization. One are revenues that support operations. So those are monies we use to support staff, that we use to really support the work that you ask us to do on the region's behalf. But we have another source of funding that we're seeing more and more of, and we call that pass-through. We're really proud. More and more, you're asking us to be the fiscal agent for a number of your projects. And that results in quite a bit of money that comes through our organization that we receive, but it doesn't stick in our account. It doesn't support our operations. We push it out into the community to do things like build broadband projects, to build fiber projects, to work on the housing program, or to do some promotional items or educational work through Ask HR Green or any of the other number of programs that we listed here and even others. Our pass-through revenue for the upcoming fiscal year, we project to be as much as $37 million of money that's going to pass through in addition to our operating revenues here at the PDC. This is just a quick chart that you had in your agenda distribution, but I think it's important to touch on. If you look down the left side, you will see starting in 2000 going the whole way down to present day. You can come over to the next column and you can see how your member per capita dues trended during that time frame. We were at about 82 cents per capita, but in 2013, 82 cents was reduced down to 80 cents per capita due to the difficult financial times at that moment, and then stayed at 80 cents for quite a long period of time, up until 2022. If you move on over to the state column, that's where you really get into an alarming trend. If you take a look back, and keep in mind, planning district commissions are formed by the Code of Virginia, by the Virginia General Assembly. But back in 2001, this PDC received over $366,000 a year from the state for our operations. Today, that's at $165,900. So as you can imagine, we are an organization that we do our best to support our staff. We have cost increases every year. We own a building, we own a property. This building was built in the late 1980s and it serves us well, but it's starting to show its wear and tear a little bit. And we've got to maintain that with our budget. Unlike other PDCs, we are a standalone budget. We're not part of any of your budgets. So items such as cash flow and being able to provide local match for grants and to be able to support the services that we want to deliver to you really depends on our ability to have money available to and not only invest in our staff and programs, but also to invest in our technology, in our building, and in our physical asset here at the regional building. You have in your agenda distribution some pie charts that show our operating expenditures and where our revenues are coming from. This shows that you can see that federal grants, whether transportation or whether water related or from other sources, federal grants are a big part of our revenue sources. I mentioned the regional building. Here's some of the work we're excited we've been able to complete in the last year. That nickel increase last year gave us about $75,000 more, but we've been saving up. You see the information monitors we have throughout the building now. We modernized the HVAC system. We finally have a new agency vehicle. The conversion of traditional lighting to LED fixtures has already started to save us money on electricity cost. You saw the improvements to the 757 meeting room. We're about 80% complete on a fire detection system, and I could go on down through, but we have an antiquated phone system we're replacing. Our carpeting is starting to show its wear. So these are some things that we're currently trying to get advanced. But we have some additional expenses as we look to fiscal year 2024. First is our website updates. Our websites are incredibly dated. So we have a really good proposal, a really good price to work with Civic Plus, same firm you all work with, to update our websites at a cost of $80,000. You're going to hear from our new DEI staff members soon. But to support our DEI program, there's some things we're going to need to be doing, and we're going to we have those costs in our budget. I mentioned the carpeting. Geographic information systems, we just can't do our work on your behalf unless we have that sound technical foundation of GIS. And we're going to lease a new telephone system. And just like all of you, our insurance premiums went up this year as well. So all told, when you add all that up, we're at $500,000 of additional costs, and we haven't even talked about staff raises yet. So those are some of the things that we're dealing with. We have a couple of items that we haven't programmed yet. Our skylights are leaking. We're getting a quote on that. We're probably going to have to move this up. The other Friday, we had quite a rainfall, and we had a fun little event when we were carrying around garbage cans, catching some of the water. You see our parking lot replacement. We're going to need to be working on that and investing. And we do have the original windows in our building as well. So in terms of challenges, just a couple of challenges that we do have. Lack of flexible funding streams is really a big challenge for us. 75% of our revenues are dedicated to specific tasks. What that means is, for our team that we receive federal transportation planning dollars, I can't take them and say, let's work on water resources or housing, right? The same way we can't pull from another department that's, or Ask HR Green, which is funded by your locality special assessments. We can't move them over to help with transportation issues. So we're sort of locked in. And when we get new assignments, we don't really have a whole lot of flexibility and really just have a small number of staff that we can reassign to those projects. Just like all of you, staff salaries and retention's a big issue. We've lost 3 people in the recent past to other regional organizations or localities. We're really proud of them. We still get to work with them, but that takes a drain on an organization. I talked with you about regional building and facilities, technology, but cash flow is an issue, right? We not only have to provide local match to be able to go after grants, but we need to be able to incur all the costs And then Sheila and her team work hard with our staff to submit the reimbursement requests. And Sheila, it takes 3 to 4 months to get our money back, right? So we got to front that money. And if we don't have enough money to front, we can't carry the cash flow of some of these programs. As an example, we're super proud on the Vadi grant and that broadband grant and the fiber. We're building over 3,000 linear miles of fiber. We're putting out $2 million an invoice that we have to wait for reimbursement on that, right? And our budget has to be able to carry that. So very, very proud to do that work, but we do have to be careful as a smaller organization. I talked about the dedicated funding sources. So if you look at what's left over, right, 25% of our revenues are at large money that we can move around the different projects and special project requests that we're very proud you make of us on an ongoing basis. Our budget also provides for our staff support for our partner organizations, HRTAC. Our small but mighty finance department provides the financial support for over $6 billion of transportation projects that are being financed by your regional tax dollars. The Southside Network Authority, we are staffing that authority in the build out of our regional fiber network. And we even provide the same support to HRMFA. So for those three organizations, from human resources support to finance support to project management support, we get reimbursed for that time. We bill them, they pay the full carrying costs, including overhead indirect rate. So those are good partnerships for us to keep your costs down. So for our 2024 operating budget, we're proposing an operating budget of about $7.4 million. The majority of our operating budget is people. About 82% are the carrying costs for our staff. Our budget proposal does propose an increase in the member per capita dues rate from 90 cents per capita up to an even dollar. This recommendation comes to you from your Personnel and Budget Committee. The state base allocation, as you all know, we don't have a state budget, but we are forecasting that to remain stable. And our budget proposal does provide for a 5% general wage increase for our staff effective July 1. And again, we work very closely with your CAOs. This is very consistent for what you're all doing at the locality level, and would recommend that we be able to apply that increase to the PDC TPO team as well. Now, included in your agenda distribution was this chart. What this chart shows you is it shows all the jurisdictions. It shows your current population. It shows what your contribution is to us under 90 cents per capita. And then if you jump over and if you do approve the increase of a dime and take it to an even dollar, this shows the additional increase for each of your localities in the right-hand column. If we can increase a dime, as you see, that takes us to $175,000 of additional revenue this year. Now, a couple things that I'll say about that. That's money we can use to match your federal funds that we bring to support our operations. That's money that we utilize to carry the cash flow of many of the projects that we're administering on your behalf. If you really look at the portfolio of our organization, we are touching projects approaching $7 billion that we're administering on your behalf at the moment. So we do request serious consideration of this increase to help us move forward to continue that work. Now, I want to amend the recommended action. The HRTPO board had extensive conversation on this today. They did unanimously approve our proposed budget. The HRTPO board unanimously approved an increase in the member per capita dues assessment from 90 cents to an even $1. But they did ask and place three conditions on that approval. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to state those if I could at this point.
Yes, thank you.
They would like to request that the Personnel and Budget Committee consider starting the budget process earlier next year. And they suggested that we do that perhaps at the end of the year in December or in January. Typically, we've let the localities go down the road and work through some, figure out what they're going to do with salary adjustments, et cetera, because that's such a big part of our costs. But they did ask us to start the process earlier next year. Secondly, they recognize that we own an asset here. And there was a lot of conversations of whether we ought to be using per capita assessment to fund capital improvements. So the request was that the Personnel and Budget Committee consider creating a capital improvement account. That was their second condition, and that we do that as part of next year's budget deliberations. And then finally, right now we're using population size and per capita assessment to fund operating and also to fund capital expenses. For the capital part, they'd like us to evaluate other funding formulas for capital improvements. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I know that Mayor Pons was at the TPO board meeting, as many of you were. So, Sarah, I'll pause and see if you want to add any other comments on that.
Director Crum. We had a robust conversation both at the P&B committee meetings about a month ago, and then certainly this morning, the TPO group. I think Director Crum has done a good job kind of outlining the conditions of that approval. So I'll turn it over for further conversations amongst the board members. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just for clarification, when Bob first brought the proposed budget to the P&B committee, he'd initially asked for a nickel increase. So going from 90 cent to 95 cent, the P&B committee recommended that we go to the even dollar because of some of the significant capital needs we had here in the building, and to prevent further damage from, windows, skylights, things like that. So that's his initial proposal was less than this, but the P&B committee recommended a higher amount.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes.
Yes, Ms.
I'd go along with the $1. I think that makes sense. I also think that having a capital improvements account is a wise decision. I'm not sure why we haven't had one in the past.
I'm not sure why we didn't, but I think it was, we all agreed with that, certainly at the TPO, and it's a condition of this, the motion moving forward. So hopefully we'll get that on board moving forward.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to also state, if you want to go back in the bullets, that the state support has remained the same for several years. And there are a lot of people running for election right now. I happen to know one. And I think all of us should be lobbying our local delegation to work on increasing that. That is a simple ask, and it should absolutely be a priority.
Well, thank you for those comments. And I would echo that. I think, given that this is an organization that's chartered by the Commonwealth of Virginia, it should be supported as such. I think there's a tremendous amount of good work that comes through this organization, and I think all of our communities individually benefit from that. But as a region, we certainly are benefit from the actions that the staff here at the PDC and the TPO take on for us every day. So, any other questions or thoughts? Mr. Mayor Dyer.
Yeah, thank you. And if you will indulge me, I'll repeat what I said this morning at the TPO. We had a very robust conversation on things, and let's face it, all the cities are strained and, trying to do the best we can. But, there's a difference between necessary and nice. And the discussion came up about, okay, why fix skylights from leaks and everything? And I just gave an example that at Virginia Beach, a number of years ago, when we had leaks and we had problems with asbestos, with leaks you get mold, and it was really affecting employees' health. And, so once again, I think what really seems like something of fluff is really a priority when you think about the quality of the environment that people live in. But once again, I just want to say that, I've been involved with this organization, since 2004. And what a remarkable organization it is. Can you imagine if we weren't here, how much resources the cities would have to use on their own to make, it's really a really good investment. We leverage, and once again, if I can give an example, a couple of years ago, Donnie Tuck, got the mayors together to talk about youth violence. And we did that first, with the Zoom calls and everything. But then as soon as we approached Bob Crum, and said, can you help the mayors? And and this organization has been facilitating quality meetings, but not only that, using their economic resources and things of that nature that make us all a more effective community when dealing with the problems of violence. Coming up with taking care of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, building a high-rise bridge, even putting an intersection on Wichita Road, which is helping us. And I think all of the communities truly, significantly are positively impacted by the actions of what we do. But once again, I think by making sure that, once again, we also have, we had to adjust in last budget, adjust our wage scale to keep people, retention and for recruitment purposes. Bob Crum's got the same problem. So, but once again, it's a tough ask, especially in these economic times. But I think, the costs are really justified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Would anybody else like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I concur with all of the comments that have been made. Just wondered why the funding dropped from our state legislator, and if we might be able to get some of our legislative liaisons to maybe go and lobby the General Assembly to maybe get those funding back up. And shameless plug, it wouldn't hurt if we had the chair of finance here representing Hampton Roads, and I think everyone knows who that is.
Director Crum, any insight as to the decline in
So,
contributions?
so one of the things, and the legislative liaisons and I have this conversation all the time. So the way that PDCs are funded now, our host state agency is the Department of Housing and Community Development. And what happens is the General Assembly determines how much they're going to fund PDCs, and then it's split up among 21 planning district commissions in Virginia. I will say, commission members, and I know I have a slanted opinion on this, but this PDC is the best PDC in the Commonwealth, and it's because of your staff. I mean, the work that these folks are doing is so elevated. And I think that sometimes General Assembly members struggle with, you have some PDCs are much smaller and maybe they're not as visible as we are proud to be. And I think that sometimes creates a little bit of a challenge. But I do think if you look across the Commonwealth, every investment of $1 in regionalism, it's documented. The ROI on that is much, much greater. So thank you for that question. And I do think it's an opportunity. And I will say the Virginia Association of Planning District Commissions is going to hold their summer meeting here in Hampton Roads, July 26th to 28th at the Hilton downtown Norfolk. And you'll all be receiving invites, and maybe there'd be a chance for us to start a movement there in terms of requests for increased funding for regionalism in Virginia.
I think we're all on board with doing some lobbying work. So thank you for those comments and questions. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Move, second that motion, sorry.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion's passed.
Thank you so much.
All right, agenda item 9, Title VI compliance update. Juan McLaren with us. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon. I know many of us just had lunch, and some of you were in here during the TPO board meeting. So I ask that you hang in there with me, and I won't be too long here. Again, my name is Quan McLaren. I am our DEI and Title VI Civil Rights Liaison for the PDC and the TPO. As many of you are aware, we did receive a Title VI compliance report a bit ago. And so I just want to give you some background, some context, and give you a bit of a roadmap moving forward. So just some quick background about Title VI. I know many of us are aware, but I just want to give that context. Title VI simply states in a nutshell that any entity that receives federal funding, which includes us and our subrecipients, which are many of you, um, we need to be non-discriminatory in the administration of our operations. So some other pieces of compliance that relate to that as well are environmental justice, limited English proficiency, ADA, and then some other compliance pieces as well. You may be wondering, what does that governance structure look like? So the primary source of funding for us comes from the Federal Highway Administration. So they are responsible for our compliance review. They conduct that for VDOT, and then VDOT conducts that for us. We're assessed every 4 years, and our next assessment will be in 2024. On February 14th, we received our most recent compliance review, and there were several items that were found to be deficient and some corrective actions that were found there for us to address. Some of you may know I was just hired February 1st, so that wasn't quite enough time for me to address those matters. So I did submit a request to extend that deadline. And then most recently, I submitted another request so that we could round this out by the end of the federal fiscal year. And a detailed timeline has also been submitted. If you would like a copy of that, you can reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to provide that for you. As a heads up, it is several pages long, but I'd be more than happy to go over that with you. So what was in that compliance review? So we'll go section by section. In Title VI administration, hire a Title VI administrator. I'm here. That's already taken care of. Create a Title VI plan for the PDC and update the one for TPO. Have a streamlined Title VI complaint process. Have Title VI training for all PDC and TPO employees and board members, which include you all. Update our LEP, our limited English proficiency plan, and to also procure translation services. To ensure that our public participation plan is up to Federal Highway Administration standards. We received an advisory comment for staffing to ensure that our staffing makeup is representative of the region. Our assurances have already been addressed and taken care of. We just needed to update which appendices were included. We want to have more intentional involvement with the PDC, which is very important. And then as with any program, Title VI or not, if you're going to do it, you want to do it right, and you want to have metrics, and you want to have goals. So we'll have a goals and accomplishments report to submit at the end of the federal fiscal year. So this actually gave us a really wonderful opportunity to reevaluate how we approach Title VI as an organization. Previously, it was a bit more disjointed. It was PDC and TPO, and now we can do a collaborative Title VI approach as an entire organization. This will help to reduce internal and external confusion, improve the efficacy of the program, and then also make it a lot easier to update. So I want to break down just the condensed timeline for you. I won't get too much into the weeds, but there are some items that I do want to bring your attention to. So you can see here, we have these items already taken care of. As mentioned, we have a Title VI administrator, and we have our assurances updated. These red items down here are specifically for you as the board. So in July, you will be given the draft of the Title VI plan. And then in October, you will be expected to or be asked to take action on the plan. Also in July, you see here, we will have our translation services in place, and the public comment period will start then. And then you'll see here in November where everything actually goes into effect. At the end, we have ongoing. It's important to note that Title VI isn't one and done. It's something that we continue to evaluate. It's ever evolving, and we want to always be improving. And you can see down there, we'll be continually working on staffing and on training. Lastly, many of you in front of you have a Celebrate Juneteenth, June 2023 flyer. This is something that's very important for our region. Some of the first enslaved people were here in our region and actually at Fort Monroe in Hampton, Virginia. And so we have a deep cultural history here, and it's important that we embrace that and that we really reflect on and we celebrate that liberation journey of Black Americans here in our region and of our nation. So if your locality, or if your partner organizations might have a Juneteenth event, please, I encourage you to reach out to me so that we can get that on our regional calendar. We want people in our region to be informed, and even outside of our region who may be visiting us, to be informed about what events are going on here during that time. Do we have any questions at this time?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I
All right.
just want to say, recently at our last vote, Council Member Sabrina Wooten and I sponsored a grant for another Juneteenth celebration at the oceanfront that day. So everybody, please come on. It's run by a remarkable group of young men, Team Lamb, who do some remarkable work in our community, to build that community unity and equity for everybody. So come on out to the oceanfront.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make sure to include that on the calendar.
Any questions for Mr. McLaren? Thank you, sir. We appreciate the update. Okay, next is roadway flooding sensors. You got it. All right. Welcome, Whitney.
All right, so the problem we're trying to solve with this is that drivers don't know if a road is flooded. And if you know it's flooded, right, you go a different way. Nobody likes getting stuck in that queue where people are trying to turn around. It's a big mess, it's frustrating. But it just having a little more information could at least help with this problem. So we've been working on this for a while, and the solution that we've proposed is to install sensors at places where the road typically floods and send data when we measure roadway flooding to Waze. So if you're not familiar with Waze, it's a navigation app. So it's like when you're driving around, you put an address in, it tells you the quickest way to get somewhere, but it has some other features. It'll let users identify things like debris in the road or cops on the side of the road. And now it will let you indicate that the road is flooded. And one of the innovative things we were doing here is if you're kind of a credible source of information, then you can send that information to Waze. And so the PDC has an account to do that and take advantage of this new feature. So pretty exciting about to get this launched. We can also use that same sensor data to send out email alerts and text alerts. But in that case, somebody has to opt in, right? They have to know, hey, there's sensors out there and I want this data. So we thought that Waze was sort of a slicker solution. So just a little reminder of the budget. This this pilot project is $220,000. Very excited to get a federal grant, as Ben mentioned earlier. Is somebody trying it right now? It's okay. So we got this grant from OLDCC. It was tied to the JLUIS recommendations, specifically on the south side. So we picked some sensor locations that are near those military-based commuting routes, but also some sites on the peninsula. But anyway, as we said, like we were able to take advantage of these implementation grants and really get to try something new with the help of our federal partners. So here you go. Here are our pilot locations. This is an actual web viewer that's up and running. Each one of those raindrops is where a sensor is. I'm super excited. They're all installed. They've all been working for a couple of months. It's kind of hard to know they're working until it's raining and you can see the little alert show up on Waze. But it has been successful, and it took a little while to get it all figured out, but but there you go.
Mr.
I
Bazan is just checking to see if they are working.
wanted to just give you a little bit more explanation of what the sensors are like. Let me see if I can, I hope I know which button. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we have a couple of different kinds of sensor installations. We wanted to try a little bit different equipment and a little different setups to learn more. But this is the most common one of the 20. So if you look here, this is a side view. I don't know if this is helpful with this Zoom, but Next to the road, so that dark brown is like the pavement, we put in like a little well. And then if there's a curb, you have to connect, if there was water on the road, to the well. And then in the well is a pressure transducer. And that pressure transducer can translate water pressure into depth. And then the little cord goes up to a box that has the equipment that can connect through the cellular system to Waze or the internet in general. So that's kind of how it works. Here's some pictures. The picture for Portsmouth, that's the typical one with a curb cut. Poquoson and Chesapeake examples are the same kind of setup, but they don't have a curb. But again, there's going to be like a little well, kind of like the sensor is in the ground. Newport News, the site, let's see if I can do this again. Nope, wrong button. There we go. So this is a different type. It's a radar, and it's shooting a signal down to the water level surface, and then you have to do a little bit of math to compare that surface to the road elevation. And then the big pictures I put in because I kind of had a close-up of the Hampton installation. So if you were driving down the road, what you'd see is a pole with a little box. Not too exciting. And behind it, you can see that's actually like a tube that goes in the water, and inside is the sensor. But I just point out to y'all, these aren't super exciting, but they're not supposed to be. We don't want people to know what this technology is. We don't want vandalism. We just want people to drive on by and like it's just another box of equipment. So that's what they look like. All right, so to Waze alerts, this is how this really works. The sensors collect measurements every 5 minutes. If the water level is 2 inches above the road elevation, it sends a flood alert to Waze. And this cool little icon shows up that says, hey, there's a flooded road. Let's see if we can do this again. Here we go. I wish it was a little bigger. It's a car in the water. So this is what Waze decided, would tell people don't go that way. So when that alert comes up, it will route people around that road. And we can change that threshold of 2 inches. We're trying to figure this out. I mean, really, this is a pilot project. There is a lot to learn on how to make this work as efficiently and effectively as possible. So that raindrop map I showed you earlier, like I said, is a viewer. It basically, if you click on each raindrop, it'll go to the sensor. It gives you a little graph. I'm working on some of the details and labeling because right now the vertical axis will be usually sort of from like -2 to say +2. 0 is actually the elevation of the road. So if the water level is above 0, the road's flooded. If it's below, it's not flooded. We'll try to make that easier. But then the other piece of this is if somebody wants more information, they want the additional features about this data, then they can have an account. And I can set up an account for anybody who wants one. And then once you have an account, these other windows kind of become available. You can set up alerts. You could say, hey, I care about this one sensor. And if the water level is 6 inches or higher, I want the portal to send me a notification. So you can do that. You could have a whole group. If you had your public works staff and you want them to know, you can set it up to get alert whenever the water level gets a certain height. The second feature is you can set up these dashboards. So say you were commuting, you had 2 options, 2 different routes, and every day you want to look at the water levels, you could have your own dashboard that says, these are the 2 spots, what's going on right now. And the third thing I want to highlight, because it was really important to our scope, is being able to download the historical data. So many of these sensors have been running for about 6 months. We've got lots of people in the region. They're doing research on this sort of thing, and they're doing modeling. And they can grab this data and they can ground truth their models and they can make them more accurate in terms of predicting when the roads are going to flood. So hopefully it'll just help us get smarter in a lot of different ways. All right. So just to refresh your memory, when we first started this, we asked your local staffs, hey, where do the roads flood? Where would you like a sensor? They came up with 200 sites. That's a little too much to start with. We were like, whoa, hold on. But we're going to revisit this and ask ourselves, do we want to expand to all 200 sites or additional sites? And so that's sort of the next step. Potentially, we can get more federal grants. I'm not sure if we can get such a good deal that get 90% of the cost covered the next time around. But our federal partners are very excited about this. They very much are looking at this as a great example of innovation that will help people avoid flooded roads. So sort of wrapping up in terms of next steps, Just trying to get the word out, get good information to people about the availability of this information. I've already talked to emergency managers, some stormwater folks. I'm on the agenda for transportation. And so we're just finding a lot of people find this type of information useful. One person told me at I think the emergency management meeting, hey, what about adding other sensor data like rainfall? Could we use this portal to do even more in terms of sharing information? So we're going to look into that. And just want to sort of highlight, I think it's exciting how innovative this is. We put in an abstract to WEFTEC, which I'm sure most of you haven't heard of, but it is the largest water conference in the country. About 20,000 people go, and they just accepted this project for their agenda in September. So we get to go out and tell people that Hampton Roads is really kind of on that leading edge of using that smart city technology. So that's exciting and fun to be able to talk about that. And I mean, I feel like we're on the path to giving people information about these flooded roads so that, we may not be able to solve all the problems right away, but we can help people avoid getting stuck and just make getting around Hampton Roads a little bit easier. So anyway, we wanted to give you an update and tell you we're on our way. So thank you.
Well, Ms. Ketchmark, thank you for the presentation and all the information. Technology and being smart cities, I think, is obviously the way of the future. I'm just thinking of even in Williamsburg, we're using parking. We're in a pilot program now using parking sensors so people with apps can identify where to park, where spaces are available. But more than just making parking available, it ties into CO detectors on light poles and so many other opportunities. And so it'd be nice to all these different sensors that we may be putting in around the peninsula can somehow communicate to generate more data, more information, and just be ultimately a better service to the residents and visitors. Any other questions or discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you. So great presentation. I know the localities have been very engaged. There's a huge amount of fiber optic being deployed in the region through city initiatives and county and regional initiatives. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to sync up the deployment of that infrastructure with remote sensors such as the ones that you did.
I will look into it. I don't know what all we can do to take advantage of that, but definitely, yeah, I'm gonna look at putting all the pieces together.
Just a question along those lines. These are all, the data is transmitted via like a 5G, it's a cell. So it's not wired into the fiber. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we looked at different options and certainly there are different ways of doing this, but this pilot project was cell service and they are battery operated. The batteries have to be replaced about every 3 years. But yeah, there's trade-offs on all these different options.
Whitney, you may have mentioned this, but if a locality would be interested, what's the average cost for a sensor location if they'd be interested?
Well, I mean, based on the pilot, it was about $10,000, but that was before we sort of had worked through how to use the technology. When we started, Waze didn't have these flood alerts. So we were sort of like, how's it going to work? What do we have to provide them? Obviously, in terms of like the portal and all, that investment's already been made. So I think it'd be less than that, but I need to go back and ask them what it would cost. I know Hampton's already looked and talked to Xylem about getting more sensors. The way we set it up in the scope is that any new sensors or old sensors could be added to our portal. So it's pretty flexible and we'll have to do a little poking around to see how good a deal we can get, especially if we did like all 200.
Well, thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Before Whitney sits down, sorry, Whitney. So from the commission, any reaction? I mean, Whitney showed you what the first pilot was, and as she said, it was 20, but we sort of envision a region-wide network of 200 if you were really going to get to where we wanted to go. Is there support for Whitney and our team looking at options for how we might incrementally move this forward? That might be a good feedback. I apologize, Mr. Chairman, but that'd be helpful for us to know.
Any comments or feedback? I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Mr. Wheeler.
Speaking for Picosin, we're very supportive. This gives us information for emergency management and related things, transportation, that we wouldn't have otherwise. The fact that it measures not just that when a road is flooded, but what the water depth is, can make the difference between when you might send a fire truck and when you don't, or whether you can get it back the same day. So we think it's great, and it's working well for us. We've already incorporated into our emergency operations center. All of our emergency operations center staff have this as up on their PCs, as I do. And each day after I check the Sewell's Point tie gauge, the next thing I check is this. And I think it'll save some people's lives in addition to all the other good it'll do.
I appreciate those comments. Mayor Dyer?
Yeah, I think we would definitely be interested, especially in the southern part of our city, which has a lot of wind rise and things of that nature, and we are prone to flooding. But the other thing, I think it could be very helpful to think about military readiness. That they would be able to, in a case of any kind of event where they had to transport materials or manpower, that they would know the best routes to take too.
Good point.
I think your comment is very, also about toll-line areas and that flood routinely. I have a question. How does this relate to hurricane evacuation? Would this help in that way also?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, measurements every 5 minutes. So it does give you that kind of information. And the more sensors we have, then the more routes we would be informed about.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do like this presentation. I do appreciate it. And I think we ought to consider incrementally moving towards the 200, as budgets will allow, because this will save lives. And I used to know one time how much water it would take for cars to start floating instead of driving. So I think this matters. It's not much at all. And so this will save lives. And so I think, as a commission, we should look at incrementally, making sure that we reach that 200 threshold. I'm sure Hampton would support it.
Yes, sir.
I know Isle of Wight, excuse me, I know Isle of Wight is interested. I was just talking to Randy, and Sheila must have been reading my mind about the hurricane evacuation zones, or routes rather. We have Route 460 that routinely floods in Isle of Wight, as well as Route 17 at the Jamesford Bridge. Both are evacuation routes. I think Mr. Stallings would also agree that there's an area in Smithfield that we would all probably be interested in monitoring.
Yes, ma'am.
Two things. One is I'm worried because it is cell phone or 5G operated in their areas that are more rural. Are you going to have connectivity issues? Number one. And number two, in a completely different vein, I actually think we should get the car insurance companies to be paying for this. They're the ones that are going to benefit from this. And I think I know that's a big idea, but we've got to start recognizing that the people who are going to be benefiting from this need to be part of, put skin in the game. So I don't know how we do that, but I think it's an interesting option to try and figure out if there's some sort of funding mechanism.
Good observation. Well, in Williamsburg, we don't get a whole lot of flooding, but occasionally we have some street flooding. But I mentioned the program that we're looking into. It'd be interesting to see if technologies can communicate and then serve the same purpose. So if for example, Williamsburg begins implementing this strategy of putting sensors in the ground, can that somehow tie into what you're doing here to provide that information? It may help advance the spread of these sensors.
I think, yeah, it continues to expand. So yeah, it's exciting.
All right. I think everybody's on board.
Yeah, and I just want to say, when Whitney took this on, there were a lot of unknowns. And Whitney, you really solved problems the whole way through. But I just wanted to compliment her. It's been some exceptional work to get this up so quickly. So thanks, Whitney.
Thank you, Whitney. Okay. Speaking of car insurance, flood insurance, move on to Ben. Welcome, sir.
I will, thank you. Good afternoon again. I will do my best to make this somewhat dry topic into something that's a little bit more exciting for the last thing we're going to be talking about today. Really happy to be here to give you an update on where we are with our getfloodfluent.org website and our flood insurance calculator tool. This was something that we originally worked with ODU and with some others around the region on, including your locality staff, several years ago with a grant from the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Unfortunately, we can only get those once every 5 years, and so we've had to support continual development of this product with our internal resources. We used Coastal Resiliency Program funds, so that's just one of the items that program is helping to fund here at the PDC. But really excited that we have this tool. We've been able to update it. You may be wondering why we actually had to update it, and you've probably heard, many of you that live in coastal areas or areas with a high number of flood insurance policies in force, about Risk Rating 2.0. This is FEMA's new methodology for rating properties. Before, they were using a very kind of general or coarse methodology based on what flood zone you were in, A zone, AE zone, B zone, X zone. That's been thrown out the window, at least for flood insurance purposes. Now they're trying to actually calculate what your actual risk is and then assign a unique risk profile to each property. The idea here is that it will both make the flood insurance program more sustainable, but also more equitable. That people with more risk should pay more, and people with less risk should not have to pay quite as much. Whether that or not that actually is taking place is that could be up for debate, but at least that's what their goal is right now. So just a little bit about kind of where we are with flood insurance in the region, and then I'll dive into the calculator update. This is based on some products that FEMA has just released. So as of you can see in the green, those columns, those show the number of policies in force for all of our communities before Risk Rating 2.0 started rolling out initially in October of 2021, and then full coverage, every new policy or renewal policy after April 1st, 2022. That's under Risk Rating 2.0, or actually now, as of the end of March of this year, the number of policies in force for our communities there in blue. Decline across the board. This is not unique to Hampton Roads. Just about everywhere across the country, we're seeing drops of up to between 5 and 10% nationwide. This is not great news. I think this is part of a larger conversation about affordability and about how we're actually going to have affordable flood insurance, because we really do want to have people have flood insurance policies that live in these risky areas. But how do we go about doing that while also having a sustainably funded program at the national level? That's part of that ongoing discussion. Risk Rating 2.0 is part of that conversation, but there are other issues being discussed in Congress and throughout the nation as well. So just kind of where we're at, not what we'd like to see and not what we were hoping to do when we rolled out getfloodfluent.org to encourage people to buy flood insurance. It's not our fault that they're not buying flood insurance. I'll just throw that out there. More directly related to Risk Rating 2.0 and perhaps of somewhat more concern, this is a product based on a product that FEMA just rolled out relatively recently, showing the current average cost back in end of September of last year for existing single-family home policies that were being rated under Risk Rating 2.0. So that's the column there in green for all of our communities. In blue, that is what FEMA is estimating based on their current rates, what the actual risk-based cost of insurance, of a flood insurance policy will be in those communities. You can see that it's not going to affect all of us the same. Different communities are going to see larger jumps over time. This is not going to take place all very quickly. There is a statutory cap of 18% per year that is mandated by Congress for primary homes. And so for those properties, it will be a longer glide path. But the key takeaway from this is that it's not over yet. It's going to keep going up. And for some of our communities that are specifically those ones that are right on the coast that have more exposure, that flood insurance is going to continue to increase significantly over time. And just something that we need to be on the lookout for. And one thing I'll highlight before I get more into the calculator is the importance of participation in the community rating system. That's something that our communities here in Hampton Roads, we are doing very well with that. It's the program, it's part of the National Flood Insurance Program that allows communities to kind of go above and beyond the minimum standards. And when they do that, they start to earn discounts for policyholders in those communities. So we have a number of communities that are doing very well with that. Norfolk is a Class 5, Gloucester County is a Class 6. Several of our communities are Class 7s. If you're a 7, you get a 15% discount. If you're a 5, you get a 25% discount for all the policies that are in that community that are not, there's a few exceptions, but for most policies, they get those discounts. So that will help to offset these increased costs that FEMA is predicting. But it's really important for us to kind of keep the pedal down so that we can continue to make progress on that and even increase our scores with the community rating system. So back to the calculator. This is the fun stuff here. Talking about what goes in to calculating a flood insurance premium. It's actually not fun at all. But the key takeaway here is that it's gotten much more complicated. And so whereas our old calculator was based on the legacy methodology, and I'm not going to read through these, but just take it, it's much more simple. It was simpler back then. It's much more complicated now. There's a lot of different data sets that are going into this. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. There are a lot of questions about when people get this new policy from FEMA, what it actually means, why it's going up the way it's going up. I like to refer to the FEMA methodology. They call it the rating engine. I call it the black box. We really don't know exactly what numbers they're using for all of these different attributes, but we are doing our best to try to identify if we can use the same data that they're using, we are using that data. If we can't have access to that data for whatever reason, we are doing our best to find proxies or asking for the users for this tool to supply that information on their own. And so really the kind of just to sum it all up, what Risk Rating 2.0 is doing is it's saying, okay, your rating is based on where your property is, how it's built, and what kind of coverage you're looking for. We can calculate, for the most part, everything there in that left column. That's what we're doing on our part to build this calculator, is doing all this geographic analysis to kind of come up with a geographic risk profile for each property in the region. It's those last two columns that we really can't do on our own. And so that's why we have this tool that really allows for people to come in who are interested in learning about what their flood insurance rate might be, to go in and answer some questions, and then they get a number at the end of the process. So this is, I'm just going to fly through this because I don't want to answer or show you all the different questions. We have 13 questions that we ask about your property, where it is. The key one here, we do ask for the address. We have a database. It's based on the regional parcel database that Sarah and others here at the PDC and with your localities that we worked at to build this region-wide parcel database. That really kickstarts everything off. And then we ask things about what it's used for, when it was built, how many floors are in it, what kind of building, what kind of foundation you have, little things about how high it is, and a few other questions about your particular property that you would know the answer to. And at the end of the day, we get more questions about how much coverage you might want to have, what kind of deductible you want to use, whether or not it's a primary residence. But at the end of the day, once you get through all those questions, there's not that many, it's only 13, and they're easy. You get an estimate of what your annual flood insurance premium might be. And I think, the goal for us in building this tool was to make it really easy for people to do this on their own time. So there was a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstandings about flood insurance. People think it's always expensive, or they can't get it, or maybe they don't need it. The goal with this tool and with our website, our getfloodfluent.org program as a whole, is to encourage people, know your risk, know what it might cost for you, and then make a more informed decision about whether or not flood insurance policy through the NFIP is right for you. That's it for the calculator, but a few other things. Keep in mind, hurricane season starts June 1st. So that's, we're going to be rolling out our next round of media to encourage people to look into flood insurance policies. There is a 30-day waiting period for new policies. So if you don't have it yet, but you were thinking about getting it, now is the time. And we're continuing to work on this website as a whole. We're really excited about it. We work closely with all the localities, particularly those that are working in the community rating system. Communications efforts that we do through getfloodfluent.org can give your localities points that will allow through your programs for public information or your other outreach efforts to get you more points for the CRS and hopefully get us even more discounts in the future. So that's where we're at with getfloodfluent.org. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, Ben, thank you very much. A lot of good information in there. I think it's critically important that people know the risk, and I think that as part of this tool, people can help understand that. But one thing's for sure, nobody wants insurance until they need it, right? But this is a great way for people to again, understand the risk and get a quote on that. So I would imagine a good opportunity for our individual PIOs, public information officers in our own communities to help get this information out would be helpful.
Yes, I just actually gave a talk to them last month to update them on where we are. And we have a whole, on the website, we actually have communications resources that are specifically intended for the PIOs and others in the region to be able to share. So things that they can put on social media. We have ad campaigns that they can be linked to. But that is a part of the program that we're working on, and we continue to have those conversations.
Good. Well, I would encourage all of us to help facilitate that conversation into our local jurisdictions. Any other questions or comments? Bob, your light's on, but your light is always on.
Mr. Chair, I would
yes,
just,
ma'am.
I'd welcome you all. I can get to the site, but we actually have a tool where individuals can put their address in the city of Norfolk, our residents, and it will show you, based on your first floor flood elevation, what a flood of a certain level will look like in front of your house. We use the data that our assessor's office has of your home. It's actually a little scary. You can see in real what a flood will look like at your house. So it's just using a bunch of different data. And Ben, you've seen it. It's not 100% accurate, but it is an opportunity to encourage people to get insurance.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Crum, do we need anything else from that? No?
That's right.
No, I think that, Ben's comment, I think is important. 30-day waiting period, right? And we know the season's approaching. So anything you can do to encourage your constituents to check out our site, use this tool to assist them with decisions, we'd very much appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
Good. While you have your mic on, you want to walk us through the next?
Yes, we do not meet in June. We switch off in June. Of course, that's the month that HR TAC and Harumpha meet, but we'll be back at it on July 20th, 2023. We'll be talking about regional legislative items. I see some of our legislative liaisons in the back, but it's going to be time to start thinking about General Assembly session, and we have a number of other items there as well. So, Mr. Chairman, other than that, you have the minutes from our advisory committee meetings, and you also have some summaries from some technical committee meetings that have occurred. Sir, I'd recommend you call for any old or new business before adjourning.
Business? Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you.